I'm glad to welcome you to our educational day, the space of truth, new media, technology, and fact-checking, hosted by GFCN, the Global Fact-Checking Network, and the New Media School. We are about to begin, but first, I'll have you seated. We'll have photo opportunities a bit later. We are really appreciative of you coming in this early morning to have this event and learn together with GFCN and New Media School, learn about fact-checking and reliability checking. Welcoming remarks will be delivered by Vladimir Tabak, president of the Dialog, autonomous nonprofit. Good morning, colleagues. I'm glad to welcome you to Russia, to Nizhny Novgorod. This is also part of the 10th anniversary installment of CIPR, the Digitalization of Industrial Russia conference. Russia is a powerhouse of digital technology. We take pride in it. So if you have a free minute, walk around and look at the booths and other events. I think it'll be sometimes useful and sometimes just curious to glean into the digital world of Russia. I think it's our first such practice-oriented event since we founded GFCN. A whole day. We first met in November at the forum, Dialogue on Fakes. We announced the establishment of GFCN there. And the leadership of IFCN mentioned us in one of his recent interviews. He said that they didn't think Russia was capable of establishing such projects and facilitating them. I think it's a great recognition of our efforts. We now have to probably come up with an in-depth investigation into their activities, IFCN. We are being noticed. We have 55 fact-checking experts from different countries in our network, so this is due to you. And over 37 countries, including 55 representatives, are present here today at CIPR. Thanks a lot. It's been quite a journey. Our mission at GFCN is to attract and consolidate experts, journalists, and media professionals who are willing to jointly stand up to their right to credible and reliable information. This day is co-hosted by the New Media School. It's a project that emerged as part of Dialog, the autonomous nonprofit. It was initiated by Izablet, who specializes in upskilling media professionals with new competencies. It's a high-quality educational project. We have Mikhail Kanavtsev throughout the day with us. He and others will be sharing real-life cases to give you some hands-on experience with practical fact-checking. Since the beginning of 2025, we've seen a rising number of new technology fakes. These new fakes alone, driven by advanced technology, have outstripped the total amount of fakes last year. Technology is advancing, which is always good, but it poses new challenges for us as well. We'll be addressing this together with our experts and guests and speakers today. This as well. Hopefully, you'll be an active part of this process. Once again, it's very important to have you here. We appreciate your participation. Thank you for joining the project. We believe that some original or initial media coverage that GFCN has garnered is your achievement, and we are hopeful for an even bigger future. Thank you. So, friends, as Vladimir mentioned, we have head of the new media school with us today, Vice-Rector for Media Education at Senesh Management School, Mikhail Kanavtsev. Let's welcome him with a round of applause. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to see a lot of international guests here with us today. Before we start with practice, I wanted to highlight a couple of points. We talk a lot about digital transformation and change, and people tend to focus on technology, omitting to consider the mindset, our behavior patterns, how people actually change, and how they are managed differently. Sometimes we think that fakes are just lies, but recent research has shown that fakes are used to govern and manage human flows and groups. Establishing GFCN means that there might be an alternative way to govern people based on actual and reliable information. We've seen many new phenomena now, sleeper agents, different social groups that are sent to our territory but orchestrated from someplace else. This might all be wrong. Migration flows might be mismanaged. The way militants and militia groups emerge might be disputed. Perhaps we might want to have a different world order, and this will require consolidation of people who recognize that a multipolar world and an anti-colonial agenda are good. This will also require new communities and new tools that we would be able to deploy in our media practices and political activism. I hope that our engagement within the network and today is an important stepping stone in pursuing this journey together. Thank you. All right, friends, we are ready to start our first panel for today. It's called Fact-Checking as a Mechanism to Strengthen Informational Sovereignty in the International Space. Fact-checking is more than just an occupation. It's an urgent necessity today, as Mikhail has mentioned. So we'll be discussing modern technology and modes of international cooperation today, with the example of GFCN and how we can combat misinformation together. The session will be moderated by Vladislav Chukrov, project expert at the New Media School. I'll hand it over to him and welcome our panelists on stage as well. Please come up together with Vladislav, hand over the reins to you to facilitate this opening session. Let's support everybody with a round of applause, the speakers and the moderator. Hello, friends. Dear panelists, please come up on stage, the participants. Friends, we are gathered here today to address a very important subject, an establishment of a new fact-checking community. At an age of instant information dissemination, we desperately need people who would fact-check it to protect our societies against manipulation and lies. My name is Vladislav Chukrov. I'm a project expert at the New Media School. Let's introduce our panelists. Tikhon Makarov, advisor to the Director General of Dialog, an autonomous nonprofit. Vladislav Dzheriev, head of Quantitative Research at Dialog. Mikhail Kanavtsev, Vice-Rector at Senesh Management School and a manager at the New Media School. Aleksandr Khorovets, Director of Online Media at Belteleradyo Company. Sergei Shchikov, Acting Rector of the Diplomatic Academy of the MFA. And we have international presence, Aleksandr Guerrero, PhD lawyer and researcher. Roygan Lopez-Rivas, a GFCN expert, president of the National Institute for Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. Let's start with Tikhon. In the beginning of this year, you established GFCN. Could you speak a bit to the challenges that you are facing as a fact-checking organization and what your goals are? It's a young organization. It was legally incorporated this January. We announced it last November. So it's been just over 6 months. A lot of biased European and North American media have been publishing investigations about us, blaming us for not being capable of fact-checking, joining journalists, and standing up for truth. This is entirely false. Just look at the international presence here today. It's an important, interesting subject which debunks their coverage completely. Our network is free to join. Any person who's a blogger, a media professional, or a fact-checker can join us by signing the Responsible Fact-Checking Code. We have 55 international journalists from 37 countries already. It might not be that many, but we do not pursue numbers. We have top-level experts, journalists, analysts, lawyers, and they're all willing to tell the truth. They do not follow biased mainstream media in their coverage of conflicts. Looking back at 2022, when the special military operation was commenced by President Putin, for all the reasons that he has voiced many times, we encountered a lot of lies levied against Russia. Russia became unpopular all of a sudden, even if we had the World Cup here in 2018 and the Olympic in 2014 in Sochi, for all the world to see that Russia is welcoming, Russia is friendly, Russia is respectful of other countries, Russia is committed to traditional values. So last year, we decided to counter lies and disinformation globally through a network, an organization. We never intended to limit ourselves to the media space of Russia. We recently launched a website, globalfactchecking.com, that publishes our investigations. Here are some stats. Over the past few months, we've published 22 investigations, and there were more than 22 million views, 2.5 million views. That's on X and other international platforms. Experts cover various events throughout the world, and we platform independent voices from any corner of the world. We're open to different faiths, races, and ethnicities to join if they share our vision of the truth, which is very simple. If it happened in the real world, this can be covered. Then any subjectivity is something different than journalism. There is no place for it in journalism. A couple dozen years back, you could cite just one source in your journalism piece, but this is obsolete. You need to have at least 3 sources to be objective. I wanted to refer to Chair Bose, who will be speaking tomorrow together with Vladimir Tabak at the plenary. my good friend Chebos. We'll have Maria Zakharova as well, Director of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Department for Information. Chair will tell the story tomorrow of how he was illegally prevented from entering Romania when they had the presidential elections. I'm sure you are well aware of what had happened. The elections were cancelled a couple of times just because the candidate who won didn't support the European policy. Then they contrived this story with Russian interference, hackers. It was never confirmed by the law enforcement, but these forces prevailed, and now they've elected a pro-European president. Chebos, an RT journalist, wanted to go to Romania and speak to people in the streets, just to see what's happening. He wasn't let in. He was held up at the airport and then deported to Turkey. This is a disaster. A lot of Russian experts and journalists are prevented access, denied access to people, to information. Russian media get banned from major social media platforms. YouTube has banned most of Russian public media, even if we've never interfered with any election or never violated any rules. Last year, we sued the FBI for their false allegations against us regarding interference into the US elections. This happened as far back as the first presidential run by Donald Trump. And the investigations that they cited and published on official agency websites have now been deleted. I'm sure that truth will prevail, and together with other countries, together with your colleagues, Russia will pursue international fact-checking, hopefully as part of GFCN, which welcomes anybody who's independent, from Russia, Bangladesh, any other country. We have all continents represented in our network already, including North America, including Europe. For example, we have Aleksandr Guerrero, one of the original members from Portugal, never shies away from the truth, and that's the kind of person that we want to bring together. The value that we offer is education, knowledge, free of charge. We'll be launching educational projects on our website very soon, lectures, workshops, master classes that will be available to sign up for, free of charge for any country. We are willing to partner with any media publication. For example, the journalists in the US that are members of the International Fact-Checking Network put forward false allegations against Russia every month. They accuse us of being biased. But we are willing to disclose and share our standards. We are willing to share with media in the EU or in the US. It's all about the truth and objectivity. Hopefully you are in support of this cause. Thank you, Tikhon. Do join GFCN if you haven't. We have Roygan Lopez Rivas with us today, one of the GFCN experts. What motivated you to join GFCN, and what are your expectations? Hello. I'll be speaking Spanish and translate it into other languages. I'll try to make it nice and slow. The milestone event of establishing GFCN is as timely as ever. We see an assault on truth all around the world. This applies to public media, government-run media, private media, and of course, social media, the social networks that are the main means of communication today. There are different attempts at introducing censorship against a preset mainstream narrative. Let me give you an example from Venezuela. There is a story of 26 years there. There is this adage in the region that we are close to the US but far from God, and the US has tried to suppress truthful voices from Venezuela many times. It's made us even more determined to make the truth known. Then you have to counter the rise of fascism as well. This is another challenge, and Venezuela needs to be part of this movement, the anti-fascist movement. But Venezuela needs platforms to share its views, and this network that's very important for us. Mikhail Kanavtsev, I'd like to address you with a question now. Can you rely on media literacy to counter fakes? I think it's a question about your school. How are you set up? How do you approach education in the school to promote critical thinking? Well, as we all know, the key skills in life today are systems and critical thinking. But we are not always clear on definitions and how to apply those. People tend to rely more and more on technology, turning to GPTs or any other platforms to discern whether something's true. But what about your brain? There is a world model in any AI of some sort, meaning that it's subjective. And then you have natural intelligence in humans. Can you engage with such technology as an equal? Here are some drawings. Very simple graphics, but it shows that depending on the focus of your attention, you either see an object or the environment or both. As we say that internet is now used to hijack your attention, this includes where your attention is focused. Al-Farhat, as they call it in Arabic, the capability to see and to discern is one of the fundamental traits of your mind. Fact-checking as applied to mass media is not all, it's not enough. There is a whole spectrum now. Here is a very basic, well-known way to steer behavior. 2 chewing gums is a bit much, usually, but it's used as advertised for profit. That's how your behavior is influenced in everyday life. That's what we have in corporate.
It's crucial to understand that today's media become an element of cognitive wars. Media, information and disinformation have very simple objectives: to enter 4 focuses: what people think, how people think, why people think, and identify those who do not think. This is an excerpt from the NATO doctrine, NATO bulletin. This is about whether you can doubt our systems of coordinate, how objective it is, how controllable or uncontrollable our parameters are. So we are very sure that this is controllable, and the question is how to come up with cyber immunity against this sort of influence. Another example of influence of the zone, people do not think that this zone is penetrated through cyber command, through the budgets that are channeled into specific initiatives. These are fakes. There are 4 films with one and the same algorithm, and 99% of the viewers do not realize that they're being misled, the algorithm. So the state is totalitarian. Young people must come together into small groups and overthrow the government. One and the same line in all the films. This is essentially an algorithmical impact on behaviors. You do not improve, you do not change, you are about to throw of the government. So this is how the new behavior models are embedded. The next slide, please. So what we have today, we look at a range of objectives in order to, and if it's addressed, we can get into the system which is easily manipulatable, easy to be impacted externally. So, and we need to address 4 strategic problems. First of all, we need to build a system of producing content where a unit of content is cascaded. So, and if you see, for example, an interesting film or series, or a character appears, this character will get to you through memes, news, etc. The next one is to set up the model range of heroes. So how we should behave ourselves, the ideology, the people who serve as role models. So this model range of heroes in Russia is 90% non-Russian. The next thing is digital infrastructure. I'm talking about technical counteractive measures, and finally in the institutionalization measures. In the industrial and post-industrial world, it was controlled in one way, and today this is down to the digital management systems of the regions, one of the elements of innovative management in our country. So for all these media to work together, we build 4 circuits of this system: those who produce content, those who manage content, those who create strategic algorithmical content. For example, you understand that the public servant or Quarter 95 wasn't purely for entertainment, or the film entitled Occupants that generated a certain attitude towards the Russians that came out in 2014, 2016 in Europe. So our task today is to restore the system, not just in Russia, but globally. The system that can form the subject for the local people or internationally. So this is it. Thank you, Mikhail. Today, withstanding information threats is the prerogative of the diplomatic corps people, and their competence, their skills is what defines whether we can counter these threats and fakes. So do tell us how you train your people to do that. We train our staff, we train young people. So hello, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the forum for allowing the Diplomatic Academy to be here to articulate our stance. So the symbol of the diplomatic service shows quills. And this is not because we write a lot and sign treaties and agreements. This is an important part of the diplomatic job indeed, but the quills go back quite a while, and they denote information and how this information is processed. What's information for a diplomat? First of all, this is a decision-making basis and the negotiating stance on the one hand. And on the other hand, it's a necessity to analyze this information thoroughly to make sure that the stance is right. Today, as many young organizations show, well, the problematic may seem quite new, but it's been on for ages. It just didn't have this digital reflection. Our academy is 91 years old, and since its inception, the training framework for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs included an important element that a graduate, a young diplomat, is enabled to analyze the information flow that they gather in their line of work. Our diplomatic academy includes various lines of work. Apart from the training, the scientific work, we pay a lot of attention to upbringing. So we have the Dialog cultural search, cultural quest festival. Within the framework of this project, we create cultural events. A ballet in the Bolshoi is scheduled for the 24th of June, a ballet called Dzheriev. And within that framework, we decided to create a series about Dzheriev. We have been in touch with our Indian colleagues. Bert Little, that's not his name, it's more a nickname. And when he talked about creating synopsis for their films, what he said was that we create sustainable reality and juxtapose them onto our line on our narrative. So he's talking about sustainable realities that have been formed by Hollywood and other entities. They don't need to be destroyed or reinvented because people are prepared to believe in that as a given. So Russians are bandits, they drink vodka, they occupied everyone, so they wear beards and they're called Boris. So you don't need to explain anything. So you take this case and mix it with a synopsis. And when the pseudo-reality is being formed, a mixture is added and it becomes a truth. So, and there is a group of people that create this truth, and there are people who consume this local pseudo-truths. So it turns out that the information flows don't just have an impact, they essentially form the reality, they destroy the reality and create a pseudo-reality and super ethos. Diplomat is at the cutting edge and essentially is an intelligence officer, right, that works with information, and a key skill for the 21st century diplomat is to find facts. So we work with artificial intelligence, we create a master's program that help people develop critical thinking about information flows using the modern big data analysis tools that help people build the platform which helps create the negotiating stance and the government stance. So we are lucky that our minister has this blend of creativity and conservative approach, which is seen in all aspects of the diplomatic work. So it wouldn't be right of me if I omitted to say, do enter our academy. Thank you. So, if a man, he should be called Boris. If a woman, that should be Natasha. Well, we need balalaikas and bears. So we don't have a single Boris here in the panel, right? So, what are other examples of fake? So we heard this Boris example. Let me talk about our sociological survey experience in Russia. And one of the key trends of today that Vladimir has talked about already is the increasing number of fakes created using digital technology, deep fakes. So we noticed an increment in those fakes, deep. So it used to be 16% of Russians that faced such types of fakes. Now it's 21%. People are appreciative of the new technology and are actively engaged in using them, including artificial intelligence. The recent data suggests that 69% of the Russians use technology and devices using artificial intelligence, including chatbots and generative networks. And people appreciate the risks and threats embedded in deep fakes. They know that deep fakes can often be made to pursue a certain political agenda, to provoke a certain stratum of people for unlawful actions. So people realize what deepfakes can do. Talking about specific topics around deepfakes, in the Russian context, well, this is actually driven by the relevant agenda. So during the coronavirus pandemic, lots of fakes were generated about dangers of vaccinations or QR code introduction. The recent fakes are about the special military operation. So the probability of fakes as per the Russian population is unstable. And recently we observed that the fakes linked to the special military operation are decreasing, whereas fakes around the well-being of our citizens are on the rise. So lots of people know this scam when people are invited to leave their bank card data to get certain payments as if from the government. So apart from the information risks, there are risks of actual losses, financial damage. If we look at the frequency of fakes, there is a downward trend. 58% of Russians say that they come across fakes once a week. In the mid-2022, the same number amounted to 90%. But here, a reservation must be made. We're talking about the experience and opinions of the Russians, and this data may not necessarily be correlating with the number of fakes. Fake creators are improving. They use neural networks, they introduce deep fakes, they play to the relevant agenda, and the downward trend in the fakes may suggest that fakes are becoming better and harder to be detected as such. And detect a fake, understand that a fake is a growth area. As our complex surveys suggest, when we take public opinion polls or run focus groups or interviews, as a result of the surveys, of this research, we arrived at an alarming conclusion. People just don't are not able to recognize fakes, but at the same time are convinced that they can do that. And one of the cases that we ran is we had a survey, and we asked a question of the respondents: how well can you recognize fakes? And over 70 to 80% put themselves grade A or B, so 4 or 5 on a 1 to 5 scale. And when we showed them real and fake news, not a single respondent could detect a fake news. And this false assuredness of being able to recognize fakes makes everything that we're talking about today, fact-checking, critically relevant. We keep getting about 70% appreciation of fact-checking work. Talking about deepfakes and neural networks, this is more about the new media. Aleksandr, my question to you: what kind of challenges the traditional media face? Good morning. Happy to be here. I spent over 10 years in the traditional old media as a journalist. And in the recent 5 years, I've been the head of the internet broadcasting of our media holding. Our audience is 4.5 million subscribers in all social network. I'm talking about real people. And talking about fakes and deep fakes, I'll side with what my colleagues have just said, that they're getting increasingly harder to detect and be recognized. So we faced the threat of fakes back in the coronavirus pandemic times. Our country is one of the few ones that didn't opt for lockdown practices, and you realize that lots of fakes were generated about morgues and mortuaries being full of dead bodies in Belarus, for example. In 2019, the cycle was 1 to 2 days, which was a lot. Then, when the special military operation started, lots of fakes appeared about certain districts bordering with Ukraine. Emergency situations arose, and in order to denounce those fakes, it took us about 1 day. So, debunking alleged statements by our leadership, so that there are initiatives, anti-war initiatives, when the Ministry of Culture is seen saying something of the presidential press secretary. Well, these fakes are very hard to recognize. I realize that a whole army is working against us, and we are in a state of information war. Together with our allies. And what's important is that the representative of the traditional media, TV, radio, newspapers, as well as the new media, social media, needs to unite their effort for the common purpose. A journalist used to have exclusive information, would carefully guard it until it was broadcast, and you know that there are time slots for broadcasting. You know, today there are no exclusive bits like this. As soon as certain information is got hold of, so people first channel it into the new media, social media, and then the traditional media follow up and put a spin on it. Another threat that we're faced, we have 4.5 million subscribers, mostly on YouTube, and probably about 1.5, 40% out of 1.5 YouTube subscribers are from Belarus, and the rest are international, Germany, USA, etc. And as soon as we have certain materials of high relevance, which talk about what's really happening in the special military operation, all these materials get pessimized right away and are concealed from the Western viewers and subscribers. I think we need to consolidate and work together, you know, as a single front. Forgive me this trite metaphor. A personal view. So, my spouse, for example, works on male infertility matters, and when we talk about the sperm and eggs, I'm sorry to be offering these bastardized comparisons. So, if we take a sperm as a piece of information that needs to get into the egg for it to generate an embryo. So, and it's not about the fastest sperm, right? As you understand, it's about the most agile sperm. So, in order to be successful in an information war, I believe lots of principles of information war tools can be used, because we have a formidable adversary, and the quality of information that's sent to our consumers depends on us, really. So this would be it. Thank you.
I think a very important point was made by Aleksandr on acting together as a single front to counter fakes. We have on the panel and in the room a lot of international guests. This testifies to the rightness of our approach. Aleksandr, when did you first encounter fakes in your life, and how long have you been battling with them? Aleksandr?
Everyone, thank you for that question. I wouldn't say that since when I have started to have a contact with the fake, because probably since I was born. For example, I usually give this example. I come from Portugal, and at school we used to learn how bad the Soviet Union was and how bad the Russians were, so on and so forth. So probably since I was born. And you need to fact check this in the future. What basically I would like to highlight is one of the biggest cases of that shows the need to have fact-checking and of how fake can influence peace and security in the world. I would remember Colin Powell's most famous speech at the United Nations Security Council in 2003 about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. This should be studied 22 years later. It's still one of the biggest cases that demonstrates the importance of fact-checking and how fact-checking would be needed back then, not only at domestic level in the US, but also at the United Nations. So having this in mind, what I would like to highlight, first of all, it would be that control of information is everything, not only for those who carry bad messages, fake content, but especially for the states, especially for the people. We need to give the power back to the people to decide in a free way. And that's why fact-checking is so important for us nowadays. Because if states don't have information sovereignty, If states have no control, minimum control, even through regulation, on all the information that is being spread about them, then states are running a huge risk. They are allowing companies, most of them who are owned by media outlets, and they commit, allegedly, with fact-checking, they commit with the truth, they commit with delivering real content to the people, and then when we realize, we see that we don't know, there's opacity about who owns these companies. For example, from my country, the companies that are most popular making fact-checking presently, they are owned by media outlets. Who owns these media outlets? And we are going to see that are people related with specific political parties, with specific companies, not media bodies, but specific companies, and we have many additional interests that we are not totally aware about who these people are. What kind of interests do they have? In my country, not only, but in Europe as a whole, we have people presently using artificial intelligence to ask it what they are supposed to have for dinner. Many people in Europe do this. What am I supposed to cook for dinner? If people do this with something so simple, people tend to rely and tend to follow the advices they get not only from artificial intelligence engines like Grok or like ChatGPT, for example, but they also tend to trust companies that present to the public as being fact-checkers. What we need to have in mind, first of all, is that we have terrorist groups, intelligence services, and many other interests that presently control information. They want to influence people from many other countries to believe what they have to deliver. And that's why each state needs first to regulate fact-checking activity. People who do fact-check must be responsible. At the same time, they must be liable. They must be committed with an ethics code, and there needs to be the involvement of many other areas of sciences. I can't only by myself use my common sense to decide if an information is real or is false. I would give here the case of the French, Les Soulignateurs. This company, for example, they have what's called not only fact-checking, but legal checking. Like it or not, is an approach that can be used and that demonstrates the need to merge not only fact-checkers from the area of technologies, from other areas, but also from the legal perspective and from the social perspective. Only that way we can deliver to the people, and states may rely on the kind of information that it's delivered to the people. Because the name fact-checking, that's being used to deliver political contents, most of the times, and we have that most recent example from Romania, the way, for example, that people in Portugal, Spain, Italy, France think and position about this topic, it's influenced by what, for example, most of the fact-checking companies have to say about this. And if we have a fact-checking company like we have, the EU fact-check, that delivers a content saying that Călin Gheorghiescu, that he was involved in money laundering, fraud, so on and so forth, without exactly questioning the method used to reach that conclusion, then we have a problem, because people will tend to follow that. That's why I say that it's significantly important for states to control, to have the control, the last word. I wouldn't say the monopoly, but to have the last word concerning regulation of fact-checking, and to be able to tell the people, you can trust this company because the methods used are the most important. We must start from a question and try to find the answer, and not the opposite, which is what's being done presently. We can't start from a conclusion, from a prejudice, and try to collect as many elements as possible to convince that we were right. That's it. Thank you.
Спасибо большое. Да,
Thank you. This concludes our panel, so let's recap. Some highlights from me. Evidently, we can counter fakes, lies, together and only together. We need to learn to identify the algorithms that are embedded into content to influence us. This can only be done together as well. And we need to be less reliant on AI and trust decent fact checkers.